All right, hi Elsa. So I'm going to try to make these videos kind of fast so they don't go super long. But if I'm talking too fast or writing too fast, you can always pause so you can catch up. Okay. So we're starting unit 4, which is called bivariate data. So it's about data, right? So we're going to be having different kind of tables or coordinate points that we have to graph. So data just means like a set of numbers, right? It could be going around and asking people, how many pets do you have? And I plot that, and that could be data. And then bivariate just means it's going to have two different things. So instead of just being number of pets, it could be like this first example here. It has time and number of views. So two variables happening at one time. So we're just going to be graphing those today. All right, let me get to my other tab so I can write. So the first one says, draw a scatter plot. A scatter plot is a graph in the coordinate plane that shows a relationship between two sets of data. What must Luciana determine before constructing the scatter plot? So a scatter plot is just a series of dots, right? We're going to put a bunch of dots on this, and then all of those dots are scattered, right? So we're plotting dots. So if we look at this, this is about a web page, and she's posting blogs on it. So blog 1, blog 2, blog 3, blog 4. And it says the time after posting and how many views it has. So what this means is her first blog post, she went and checked it 2 hours after she posted it, and there are 350 views. Her second blog post, she checked it 6 hours after she posted it, and there are 50 views, right? So all the way up to her 7th blog post. She went and checked it 3 hours later, and she had 250 views. So we need to determine if there's a relationship, but before we can determine if there's a relationship, we need to plot it. So in order to plot it, we need to make sure that there's an X and a Y. So we need to plot time versus number of views. The number of her blog post doesn't matter. We don't care if it's blog post 3 or 4, because it says the relationship between the two sets of data, which it says here is time and number of views. So let's just make time the X and number of views the Y. You could swap it, but in this case, it doesn't matter, right? So like my first point is going to be 2,350. My second point is going to be 6,50. So I can't graph yet still because there are no numbers on these grids, right? So we have to take some time to number it. And this is where you're going to see my bad handwriting. I haven't done this in a while. So at the bottom, actually at the bottom, I'm just going to label this is time, right? In hours. And then on this side, we have number of views. And then, yeah, I don't need to figure, that's the unit number of views. Okay, so the first one, after 2 hours, there are 350 views. So if I look at the hours, 2613, I can just go by ones, I think. I'm trying to see what I did before. Yeah, I went by ones. So see if I can get in there. This would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, this would be 4, and I need to go all the way up to 7, right? 5, 6, 7. And then for number of views, my smallest number is 50. Nope, my smallest number is 25. And my biggest number is 500. So what if we just went by 50s? So here's 50. Then this would be 100. I'm just going to skip writing every 50 to save some time, but you can write it if you want, right? So that'd be 150, then 200. Oh, so sloppy. This would be 250, then 300. 300. This would be 350, then 400. And then 450, and the top is 500, which is great because that's our maximum number. That's what we need. So now we have to plot it. I'm going to switch my colors just so let's do pink. So if I look here, the first point I have is 2 hours, 350 views. So I go to 2, and I'm going to go up to 350 and put a dot. My second number, after the second blog post, 6 hours, 50 views. So 6 hours, 50 views. My next one, she waited 1 hour and she had 500 views. 1 hour, 500 views. The next one, she waited 3 hours and she had 200 views. 3 hours, 200 views. The next one, 4 hours, 150. So 4 hours, she had 150 views. So I go to 4, go up to 150, put a dot. 7 hours, 25 views. So after 7 hours of waiting, there were 25 views. That's like halfway between that. And then when she checked at 3 hours, there were 250 views. 3 hours, 250. So then there's another dot here. So this is making me think if it's a function or not. Now I know this is not a function if you look at the dots, because remember, if you drew the vertical line, there's 2 points at 3 hours. All right, so I have my dots, and the question that it asked was, is there a relationship between the time after posting and the number of views? So the one thing to point out here is this isn't the total number of views. It's like who's on that page at that current moment in time. So when she went and waited 2 hours, 350 people were looking, versus 7 hours where only 25 people looking. And if you think about it, it makes sense because it's like Instagram or something, right? The newest things, they're top of your screen, everyone's looking at them. The older things get, they kind of go back, and there's less people looking at them, right? Like I'm not looking at someone's photos they posted 7 hours ago because I probably already saw them the first hour. So it's asking, is there a relationship? So if I look at these dots, you can kind of see they do follow a pattern. They're trending down. Like if it was a curve or a line, it would have a negative slope. So what I could say is, as the number of hours increases, as the number of hours after posting increases, right? So as you go up in hours, what happens to the views? The number of views, well, what's happening to the number of views? It's decreasing. Decreases. So essentially the point of this was, one, to recall or learn for the first time what a scatter plot is, which is just a plot of dots. And then 2, to look at the relationship, to be able to look at the data points and go, what's the relationship here, right? The longer you wait after a post, the less people who are viewing it. Okay, so now let's go down. If you need more time, you can pause. There are also 3 ways to describe scatter plots. They can have a positive association, which you can see if I drew a line through these, it would be going up. It'd be a positive slope. So positive association and positive slope are kind of the same. You can also have negative association, like a negative slope, it's going down. Or you can have no association. If I look at this, those plots, those dots, the data points are kind of all over the place. I couldn't put a line through them, so there is no association. So for the positive association, as the X values go up, so as you increase in X, the Y's also increase. That's why it's positive. So as the X values increase, the Y values increase. And then here, it's kind of the opposite, right? Here, as the X values increase, this is like our example with the views. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Increase. So as the X values increase, well, the Y's are falling, right? So the Y's are decreasing. And no association, there's no pattern. So this is just some vocab. So we're going to do 2 more scatter plots, but I think they're already plotted for us, so it won't take so long. Right, so we're on to page 2. Example 2. Rochelle asked 10 friends how many hours of sleep they got the night before a math test, and then matched that data with their scores. She plotted her data in the graph below. Did students who slept more get higher test scores? So she's trying to determine if the number of hours you sleep has some relationship to your performance on your test. So if I look at this, so there is, if we look at these, they are kind of clustered together, right? So I'm trying to say, is there a positive association, a negative association, or no association? So for me, I think that one kind of looks like this. So if we go back down, you can see that they are increasing, they're going up. So there is a positive association. So we could write this. There is a positive association. Let me scoot it over. The more hours slept meant higher math scores, right? So that's kind of the general relationship. If we look, it tends to look like the more you, like this person that slept 10 hours, this person that slept 10 hours had the highest score versus the 4 to 6 hours, they had lower scores. So there is an association, but these are also some definitions that we need to fill in. So a cluster is a group of points that are close together. So in our case, I'll do it in blue so you can see. This is our cluster because these points are all grouped together. So this is the cluster. You can also have gaps, right? So gaps, let me do another color. Gaps is an area of the graph with no data. So there's no data points there. And you probably noticed that when you looked at this one, right? You have this whole area here that has nothing. Like it seems like the dots should keep going down, but there's nothing there. So that's a gap. And why is it a gap? Well, if we think about it, it's hours of sleep. The lowest amount that someone slept last night was 5 hours. That kind of makes sense, right? Most students at least get 5 hours of sleep. There weren't a lot of people who were getting 1, 2, or 3, 4 hours. So there's nothing there. That's why it's a gap. And then this one is a new word. Let me make this one, I guess, orange because I don't have green. So an outlier is a data point that is set off from the others, right? It kind of is an outlier. Like if you're saying that person is an outlier, they're kind of different. They stand out. And here you can see we have one outlier. It's this dot here. He's kind of the one outlier. He or she slept for 10 hours, but they still got a 40% on their math score. So that data point doesn't follow the trend of the others. That's all it means. Okay, let's go to the next one. Last one, example 3. Avery is the middle school basketball statistician. She tracks the number of minutes a player plays and the number of fouls the player makes. Her data are shown in the scatter plot. Is there an association between the number of minutes played and the number of fouls made? So you're looking at this data and we're trying to figure out, is it positive association, negative association, or no association? So take a look at this. When I look at it, I don't see any lines that I could make, so I'm tempted to say no association, but you can go back and check and look at these 3. Which one does it look like most? It definitely looks like this one, right? Dots all over the place. I can't say if the line would be positive or negative. So this is no association. So essentially, what does that mean? There's no relationship between the number of minutes played and how many fouls you make. Those 2 things, for some reason, don't impact each other. All right, so that's the end of the notes for 4-1. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go, and this is in the back of your packet. There's these 2 sheets that say 4-1. Here, let me stop sharing, stop presenting. So this one, it says 4-1 on the top. This is all vocabulary, right? So we went over some of it. We went over all of it, actually. And then this is where you're actually graphing and making your own scatter plot. So do those 2. All right. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.